And good evening and welcome back. The start of the 8th year of the Big High School Sports Show on 98.9 FM and 1230 AM WXCO. Online at bullfallsradio.com, mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO, and on the Civic Media app. Again, very happy to be back for the start of the fall high school sports season. We'll be with you throughout the fall and then throughout the winter into the early part of spring until the end of the winter sports season in mid-March. During the winter season, we are joined by the former Newman Catholic High School boys basketball coach Jeff Gress, but during the football portion of our season, very happy to welcome back for a second year former head coach of the Wausau West Warriors, Jason Foster. Good to have you back, Coach.
Thanks, Chad. It's great to be here. Kind of a exciting time of year, and this kind of kicks it off. So it's been nice.
And make sure to talk into the microphone.
It's only year 2, so I'm working.
No, it's great to have you back. It's an exciting time, ready to go for another very exciting football season. I think before we start to break down both the conferences and week one of the interesting aspects going into this season is massive changes. This was a realignment year for the football-only conferences, and there's some changes. In fact, there's missing traditional conference. You don't see Merrill anymore, but quite a few changes in the conferences that we keep a close eye on here in central Wisconsin.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's new. We'll talk a lot about it, but I think one of the things is it is exciting. There's some new rivalries. Some old ones went away, but I think this is one of those situations where the WIA catches a lot of flack. But I do think the process that they have for these realignments and the fact that they chose to do football-only realignment, excuse me, is I think they're doing it the right way. I think as you look at these conferences that are changing in other sports too, the ability to take football out of the equation and make them their own separate animal and kind of it allows for a lot of flexibility in other areas. And I think this is an area where they do have a lot of input. It's not just a group of people sitting in the room in the WIAA making these decisions. There's superintendents and athletic directors and principals and coaches, and there's all sorts of people who are part of the process. And it is a 2-year process that comes to it. And there's a lot of thought and effort and energy that goes into it. It's not perfect. I'm sure there are teams we're going to talk about today who might not be happy where they ended up. But at the end of the day, I think they're doing it the right way.
And before we do break down each of the conferences that we watch, and basically we're going to look at the Wisconsin Valley Conference / Big Rivers partial conference, the Great Northern Conference and the Central Wisconsin Conference, both large and small. I would say with the Valley, it's a pretty even trade. I mean, you take the two teams from the eastern part and the Fox Valley and get replaced by a couple of Eau Claire schools from the Big Rivers. I think both sides, programs that at times have the potential to be pretty good. I think maybe Hortonville leaving is maybe a little advantageous for these former Wisconsin Valley Conference schools. But then you look at the Great Northern Conference and both Central Wisconsin conferences. I think all three of those conferences got tougher because of the realignment.
Yeah, I would agree. I think the schedules will be kind of neat to see how they play out through the years and strength of schedule. And I think some of those will help these teams when it comes to that computerized seating at the end of the year. I think beefing up the schedules. I think the other interesting part about the Wisconsin Valley Conference leaving the Fox Valley is how they agreed to do the crossovers with the other side. So really the Wisconsin Valley schools are no longer playing any of those Fox Valley schools, which at the end of the day might be detrimental as well, because you're most certainly going to end up in a sectional or in that 8-team bracket. It's going to include some teams over there, and with the mandatory crossover or the decision to cross over for the non-conference games as well with the Big Rivers, I think that kind of taking those Fox Valley schools out, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out and what the computer thinks of no head-to-head matchups when that time comes.
Let's start to break down these conferences, because I do think there's some interesting teams and interesting conferences, and I think some things we can expect, but also a lot of unknowns as well. Let's start with the Wisconsin Valley Conference, because when we got together for week one last year, I don't think people thought that Stevens Point would make that kind of turnaround. I think there were questions even early into the season, even after they got the win against Hudson early. But then they went on and they were able to win the Wisconsin Valley Conference, the Valley Football Association Championship, the final VFA championship. I guess they can hang that on the wall. But Stevens Point had a terrific season, and when you start off with the league, you look at the team that won it last year, and I think that with the amount of talent that they have back, they look to be, I think, at this point, the clear favorite in that conference.
Yeah, I think so. I think that at the end of the day, high school football is not that different from college or the NFL, and we all know to be successful at that level, you got to have a good quarterback. Yeah. They have an outstanding one. One of the players of the year in the conference last year or close to it, and he's back. And you can only imagine that he got better. He lost a couple weapons, but I think that's the one thing that you can count on at Stevens Point is they're going to have athletes.
Mm-hmm. And the thing about Grant Shodanov is that this will be his third year as quarterback. You don't see that very often at this level, especially the Division I level in high school football in Wisconsin. He made an incredible leap from year one to year two. It's going to be very interesting to see how the opponents of Stevens Point work against him because he had such a solid season a year ago. He was very good with the football.
Yeah, and I think you can almost say that for the entire program, right? It was year two for their head coach, and I think the things they did, they took a huge step forward as a program, and I think that is something that will have to be reckoned with. I think ultimately what they do is rely on those big weapons and those big plays, and it's hard to sometimes game plan for. I mean, you can double cover a receiver, or you can do some things with your front to adjust for that good running game or whatever, but it's hard to strictly game plan for what a quarterback's going to do against you week in and week out.
Then outside Stevens Point, I mean, there seems to be the potential for a lot of teams to work themselves into a position in the upper half of that conference. Wausau West was second a year ago. You have DC Everest, who is tied with Wausau West, I should say, for second place a year ago. It was a bit of a tough go of it for Marshfield. They were able to get over the line into the playoffs. And then Wisconsin Rapids has had some struggles recently. Those are the other Valley teams, so we'll get to the Eau Claire teams in a moment. But there's opportunities for all these teams to make some noise, isn't there?
Yeah, I think last year at this time when we sat here, we kind of probably put Wausau West at the top of that, and the question was who's going to kind of challenge them or kind of fall into those 2, 3, 4 spots, and I think this year Stevens Point is that team. But when you look at Everest, Marshfield West, and who knows with the Eau Claire schools, I think that question is really, I mean, Spash I think is the front runner. Not to say that somebody won't knock them off, but I think it will be very interesting to see where 2, 3, and 4 line up.
When you look at DC Everest, obviously, anytime we go over there, you see those footballs on the wall for state championships and just an incredible successful run that Wayne Steffenhagen had. But it's truly the start of another era, isn't it, with Braden Mitchell? So I actually had a chance to, right after he was named the coach last spring, he came over here, had a chance to sit down with him. A very interesting young man. He's a young football coach, but he is not from the Wayne Steffenhagen coaching tree, and that's a big change for DC Everest, isn't it?
It is a very big change for DC Everest, and I mean, realistically, it's the first time. I mean, I don't know how long Coach Steffenhagen was there, other than I was there. I was at West a long time ago, and he was there then. But then they have kind of stayed inside. They've had those guys who've taught and coached and even played for Coach Steffenhagen over the years, and so they kind of decided to go a different direction. I had the opportunity to meet Braden about 3 or 4 years ago when he first moved to the area from the western part of the United States, and he was
Utah.
He was a head coach out there and had some success, and kind of he has some experience within this conference in a short period of time too. He spent some time at Spash, spent some time at UWSP, and then last year came to DC Everest and kind of did some things with their offense. So, and I think that's kind of him. I think he's an offensive guy, so I think the question mark will be, who are the Evergreens going to be on offense this year, and what will his influence be?
And by the way, I forgot to do something at the start of the show. Obviously, I'm not totally prepared because the first thing I need to tell people who are our guests, and I never even told because now we talk about DC Everest because coming up just after 7 o'clock, our student athlete guest, Oscar Latendresse, who is a senior offensive lineman, first team all conference a year ago. So we'll learn more about the new coach and the setup at DC Everest with Oscar Latendresse. And we will also be joined coming up in just a few minutes by Merrill High School football coach Jason Wadzinski. So I guess first week you forget a few things, but for folks who are wondering, whoa, who's going to be the guest this week? Because they always talk about how great the guests are. Well, they just start talking themselves. Again, Oscar Latendresse from DC Everest just after 7, and Merrill football coach Jason Wadzinski coming up in a few minutes. Before we leave DC Everest, like Stephen's point, another good aspect for the Evergreens is a very successful quarterback in Logan George.
Yeah, I think he really stepped up. I think that prior to last season, I think that was kind of a little bit of a revolving door, had some injury issues at that quarterback position, but I think they have solidified that now. And I think with the last 2 coaching regimes, they kind of molded that offense around what their strength was, right? Was it the quarterback in the throwing game? Was it running? And I think that's kind of where they're at right now. I think I believe with the new coach that there is a system in place, and they have a guy with some experience who ran it underneath him as the offensive coordinator for a year. So I think we will see some consistency, and anytime you have that consistency, that's where you see improvement.
Wausau West also has a quarterback back in Jack Kostrowski, but they, again, it's a different feel for Wausau West. They did lose some, we call them impact seniors. Again, they were kids that were ranked among the top seniors in the state of Wisconsin. And when we talk about what to expect this year, you don't know what's going to be like in week 10, because I think Wausau West found that out when they're I think it was the 29th and the 30th ranked seniors in the state of Wisconsin were not available late in the season. But for Wausau West, having Jack Kostrowski back is a good foundation, at least to begin with.
Yeah, it really is. Jack's solid. He's consistent. He has strong arm. I know he's worked really hard in the offseason and done all the right things. And just like the other 2 quarterbacks, when you are solid to begin with, work hard, have another year under your offseason under your belt, you look for improvement. And I think that's really what Coach Johnson's looking for with Jack. I think the big question mark for Wausau West, and I think sometimes we look at question marks and we think bad, but I think it just is what it is it's first time in a long time they haven't entered a football season with a really established impact running back who is returning from the year before. And and that will be a question mark for them. I do think they have several guys in that with Cooper DePoit and Anthony Afildano and maybe some Miles Wavogel and those sorts of players. But I think there is a lot of question marks, and I think that will determine their success this year is who steps up and how far will they step.
I think one area that I think that people will have to keep an eye on when they play Wausau West is the defensive front. You got DeAndre Bourne. So you talk about, I don't think he's a question mark. He's a guy that's going to come in there. And even physically up front, Tegan Rasmus, a physical presence as a young guy, as a sophomore last season. We head to Superior. He had a defensive touchdown a year ago up there. But defensive front is an area I think Wausau West can hang their hat on, at least early on.
Yeah, absolutely. I think DeAndre anchors that. And not only is he a heck of a football player and strong like an ox, but I think he's been around the program at the varsity level for 3 years too, kind of like when we talked about Grant from Spash. And I think that's you can't trade that in, because I do think I also know West has a smaller junior class this year, which means we probably will see some sophomores on the field. So to have a 3-year starter like that anchoring your defense, I think that goes a long way in helping those young guys out as they develop into varsity football players.
What do you think the impact will be of Eau Claire Memorial and Eau Claire North in that conference?
I think it'll be interesting. I think for several teams in there, like, they are not the powerhouses of the big rivers. I think of the 2 that Eau Claire North is kind of the one that is ascending. And talking to some people over there, I understand that they have a really big, strong offensive line at Eau Claire North, and I think for the first time this year, coming into a season in many, many years, they feel like they have the opportunity to win multiple conference games and maybe take that next step and become a playoff team, where they were kind of the doormat of the Big Rivers for quite a while. Yeah. So I think there's some reason for optimism there. They've kind of had the same coach in place now for a few years in development. So I think that'll be an interesting team to watch to see where they stack up against Everest West, Spash as well, but kind of in that Marshfield, how the mix. I think Memorial's probably, they've kind of now become the team with the turnover or the turnover at the coaching position. Their coach last year is actually back up at Superior. So we'll still see him week 1 this year in Superior, who's been turning a coach over a little bit as well. But I think that of those, that is kind of the North will kind of comes in with a little higher expectations, and Memorial's kind of figuring out who they are as a team.
Let's talk a bit about the Great Northern Conference. Coming up in a few minutes, we'll get a chance to talk to one of the coaches in the GNC, Jason Wadzinski. But, I think as long as I've been doing this show for the last now 7 years, starting our 8th year, the Great Northern Conference has been Mosinee and Medford. And last season, very impressive for Mosinee during the course of the conference campaign. Gave up 3 points total during the conference campaign, though they had just a heartbreaker in the playoffs against Somerset, where they had the game basically won, and it slipped away in the final minute. But at the same time, Mosinee was terrific. Medford has traditionally been a very good team. And then the rest of the conference has been, to say the least, mediocre at best. I think that it's not. I don't think it's an unfair statement. It's just I have not been able to see those teams take that next step. A little bit of a different look this year. You got Wausau East moving into the Great Northern Conference. You got Tomahawk returning to the Great Northern Conference. I guess before we talk about any specific teams, generally, I think that makes for a better conference, doesn't it?
I think it absolutely does. I think you take out Hayward and Ashland, I think it gives it a different look. I think Wausau East brings some more size, and I think it's good for that conference to have a larger school in there like that take the place of the other ones, and I think it's good for Wausau East to kind of see some different competition than they've seen over the years. And I think Tomahawk feels like they have a little resurgence in their athletics right now. I know their hockey program had a nice run last year, and I know their football team did some things they hadn't done in a while. Obviously, you talk Great Northern football, you're going to look at Medford and Mosinee at the top, and I think that that's exactly the way it plays out to start this year as well. But the one thing I learned last year from doing the show and is understanding how the schedules work, right?
Yes.
Like, so teams that go from 4-0 to 5-4 or 4-5 in a hurry.
Yeah, Lakeland started terribly. Rhinelander started great.
Yeah,
and they reversed
who they play first, and I think so. I think that's kind of a nice thing for them to look forward to. Is that schedule's completely different. There's different teams in there now, and the order of which they're playing is different too. So I think that's kind of got to be exciting. We'll talk to Coach about it in a few minutes, but I would think Merrill's excited to kind of have some different teams in there to compete against this year.
Talking about Mosinee, saw them at the scrimmage over at DC Everest last Friday, and it's going to be a different look. This is a program that's been known for offensive firepower. They lose their quarterback. They lose Jershel, who's their all-around player. I think there's some questions on that side of the football, but the defense has taken steps forward. We saw that last year. But I think it's going to be interesting to see how Mosinee replaces a lot of production.
Yeah, I think, a lot of it, they have a lot of talented coach's son and that, but at the end of the day, Keegan Jershleys don't come around very often. No. And not only his production, he was double-digit interceptions, if I recall, from last year, but what he brings on the back end of that defense to kind of set the whole thing up and oversee it, that's really, really hard to replace, and you probably aren't replacing it with one guy. It's probably 2 or 3 guys taking on his role.
Medford, it's just about, winning the battle at the line of scrimmage. That's what they do. They come out there and they try to run the football. It works exceptionally well most of the time. And then I think, though, it seems to have a limit. And I just wonder, when you look at a program like Medford, and again, not to second guess, but at the same time, so you sometimes have to think outside the box, maybe think forward a little bit, where you say, okay, we know what we're going to be in the conference, but we got to be ready to non-Alaska like they tend to play almost every year. As a coach, what is the mindset? Because it's very difficult, I imagine, if something's really working well, to go away from it. You may think, I know we're going to need to do something else, but if you're able to pound it for 350 yards on the ground every week, which they tend to do, it's hard to get away. How do you try to take that aspect of it, but then also say, well, we want to get past level 2 in the playoffs?
I think I can very easily speak to that. I had a very similar experience when I was head coach up at Northland Pines years ago. We had a absolutely outstanding athlete in Austin Ramish who went on to have a great career with the Badgers, running the football. And when you have a kid who can rush for 2,200 yards a year or 1,750, whatever it ends up being, it is hard to think about that. And then when you get to those playoff situations, and in that case, we were playing Wapaka, who had the really strong programs, and one-dimensional doesn't get it done. So, but as a coach, and part of it is your fan base and your community. There's a lot of armchair quarterbacks. There's a lot of second guessers out there. So when you do something well and you try to kind of spread your wings a little bit or diversify what you're doing offensively or on the other side of the ball a little bit, there's a lot of people who question what's going on too. So you have to do it. I mean, that's really the only way to get beyond is to be multidimensional. But when you can run the ball as much as you want, as hard as you want, and have an undefeated regular season or compete in every game, that is definitely a challenge that you have to look at. And it's an off-season question. I mean, that's really something that gets developed in the off-season, adding those little wrinkles to your offense that your conference opponents aren't used to seeing, but that you work on over the course of camp and 9 weeks to develop. So when you get to weeks 10, 11, and 12, you're ready to implement some of those things.
What about Wausau East? What do you know about the Jacks? I know they do lose some explosive players. I think last season we saw that with kids like Pacey Weber. He was somebody that had the football a lot in his hands, obviously. For the Lumberjacks, again, this is an exciting move. This is an opportunity for Wausau East football. What do you know about East? What do you expect this year from the Jacks?
I expect definitely some excitement and some positive steps forward. I think you're right. I think with a kid, I think Pacey Weber was kind of Wausau East's Keegan Jerschley.
Yeah,
not the exact same kind of athlete, but he was their leader. He was their rock. That program went through a ton of adversity over the course of his 4 years in high school, or that group's 4 years in high school. And last year was kind of that culminating event where we 8-man, where we 11-man JV, and so there was a ton to get excited about last year, being back at 11-man, and there's a ton to be excited about this time. But I think when I look at their roster and from what I understand of it from last year and going into this year, that they have a lot of athletes. But with the history that they've had the last 4 years, how many football players do they have? Because I think they've done a great job over there of recruiting taking some of those kids who've had success in their basketball program and in their other programs and getting them to be on the football field. Now it's about what can we put together as an 11-man football team.
Later in the program, we're going to take a look at the Week 1 action. We'll talk a little bit more about some of these other teams in the GNC, and we're going to talk a whole lot more about the Merrill Bluejays coming up next. We're going to have a chance to talk to the head coach of the football Bluejays, as we will be talking to Jason Wadzinski coming up next. This is the Big High School Sports Show on 98.9 WXCO. On Friday night, the Marathon High School football team kicks off the 2024 season at home versus Pittsville. Hear the exciting action live on the Sports 2 stream of BullFallsRadio.com and on the Civic Media app, starting with the pregame show at 6:35 and the opening kickoff at 7 p.m. The game will also air on delay following the Wausau West game on 98.9 WXCO. Marathon football on WXCO is brought to you by Marathon Park City, Four Seasons Screen Printing, Brickner's of Little Chicago, County Materials, the People's State Bank, Marathon Cheese, the Dirks Group, Marathon Family Dentistry, the Marathon Athletic Club, Fisher Transportation, Morgan Sand and Gravel, Rip Balls Fabrication, and BS Taxidermy. It's Marathon hosting Pittsville in high school football. Friday night starting at 6:35, live on the Sports 2 stream of BullFallsRadio.com and the Civic Media app, and on tape delay following Wausau West football on 98.9 WXCO. And welcome back. Big High School Sports Show on 98.9 WXCO. Online at bullfallsradio.com. Mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO and on the Civic Media app. Again, week number 1 of the new season, 8th year of the Big High School Sports Show. I'm glad you could be with us, and hopefully you'll be with us every Wednesday from 6 till 8 p.m. And, of course, you can also get it as a podcast after the show. We put it on our Big High School Sports Show page at bullfallsradio.com and civicmedia.us and wherever you get your podcasts. Coming up a little later on will be our student-athlete guest, Oscar Latendresse of DC Everest, senior offensive lineman at 7:06. But our first coach guest of the season, and very happy to welcome from the Merrill Bluejays, Coach Jason Wadzinski. And Coach, thanks for coming on over.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Last year, I had a chance. I actually went up one Saturday because most Friday nights I'm working, doing a game, and had a Saturday afternoon off, and I went up to Merrill on a beautiful day. Saw you face the Rhinelander Hodags. And the thing that kind of jumped out as we talk a little bit first about last year, then we'll talk about this year, is your team was able to, I thought, they came out there, they played hard football, they moved the ball up and down the field, and were not able to put a lot of points on the board. It looked like, judging based on some of the numbers for the season, that was the case where you kind of knocked on the door but couldn't quite get over the hump offensively in terms of points last season. Would that be fair to say?
Oh, 100%. And I think when those types of things happen, you're looking at like a telltale sign of really a young team. Going back 2 years ago, we made a nice little run and made a playoffs for the first time in a while. And then last year, 2023 started, and we bumped down to only 6 seniors. And of those 6, only one of those guys was a true lineman type build. It's hard to play that game, you know. Football's high school varsity football is a man's game, and when you don't have those guys out there, you can have great athletic young guys on the field, but ultimately it's hard to, especially on the offensive side of the ball, put up points against those stout defenses.
Especially in the red zone, right?
Especially in the red zone, yeah. We had 4, I think, one-score games last year, 3 or 4, something like that. That Rhinelander one, I believe, was a 7-0 game at homecoming. So if you like a defensive battle, I'm sure you enjoyed yourself.
It was a beautiful day, I'll tell you.
Yeah, I mean, it was gorgeous out, but yeah, just couldn't get the things done that we needed to do on the offensive side of things last year, particularly.
So based off of that, a couple things. One is it's kind of hard. Like when I was still coaching, like I kind of looked at that summer 7-on-7 stuff almost as a necessary evil. Like everybody's doing it, so you have to do it. It's important. You get benefits from it, but maybe sometimes you feel a little better than you should about your ability to have success in certain areas, because until you put a pass rush in there and get your line out in front. So first question is how do you feel about that, like coming into this season, and what are your thoughts on the summer stuff? And number 2 is, so what's different this year? How will it look different up front for you on the line?
Yeah. First off, I know exactly what you mean about the 7-on-7. We look like world beaters at times going up against teams in 7-on-7, and like, oh yeah, we got to do some blocking here still on these big guys, and the last few years, Merrill has not had the horses up front, and it's hard to get those guys out for football. They're walking around the halls, but recruiting them to come out in early August and play this game is not the easiest task in the world. So something that we started doing, and right, wrong, or indifferent, we made the transition about partway through last year when we realized the trajectory of the season wasn't going the way we wanted to. We switched to a more zone blocking scheme, knowing that those big guys plowing the field aren't coming out for football. We have smaller bodies; they're a little more agile bodies. They're athletic though. They can do some things. They can move around. They can move laterally and things like that. So we're like, you know what? Let's just embrace what we have coming out in the future, and let's pull the Band-Aid off and start the transition early. So we've gone full zone blocking now, and we're one scrimmage in. Yep. So it's a very small sample size, but it seems to me like we're trending in the right direction, maybe progressing in the way we need to, and hopefully things can come together this year and we can score some points.
Again, we're talking to Jason Wadzinski, head football coach of Merrill High School on the Big High School Sports Show on 98.9 WXCO. What about the mental aspect? Obviously, it's sort of a up and down. to go to the playoffs 2 years ago, to have that feeling of taking that stride forward, and then last season to go through a tough campaign where you didn't win a game in the regular season, did get the extra week win. I'm sure it was a nice way to go into the offseason, but at the same time, mentally, where do you think the program is? Because for young guys, it's not easy to go through a season where you're constantly kind of getting knocked down a peg and losing some close games, as you said. Do you feel like the mental edge is still at where it needs to be going into a new season?
I would say right now we're where we need to be. Last year was a challenge. I mean, it was a lot of trials and tribulations. We had, like I said, a number of close one-score games. I think right out of the gates, we kind of got spanked by Osceola early. Week 2, Crandon. We were up for 46 minutes, something like that. It was maybe even longer. I think they scored. I literally think they scored in the last play.
I think you're right.
Of regulation.
Yeah.
To take it 13 to 6 or 13-7, whatever the score was.
Mm-hmm.
So those ups and downs, they hurt and they're difficult to overcome. I would say that we're up to 12 seniors this year. We lost a couple. That just, I think, when you have the year you had last year, it's hard to retain all those guys. Mm-hmm. It's tough, and you didn't enjoy it last year when you're a junior, when you're going through games like that. So it's hard to retain everybody, but I feel like we have a good core of seniors, and I always feel like that is the class that you have to focus that particular season's energy on, mm-hmm. and we have some great leaders in that class. I think that with that group of kids and the locker room presence that they have, as of right now, everything is where it should be, and hopefully we can stack some success early and get this ball rolling again.
Yeah, and kind of to piggyback off that and some of the things you said, one of my favorite things to talk about with coaches, like X's and O's is great and offense and defense, but is kind of that leadership piece and that culture piece. And we all know that high school football, like you said, it is a 12-month sport now. Like, we encourage our athletes to play as many other sports as they can and to get involved and see other faces. But at the end of the day, we're doing stuff 12 months out of the year. So what are some of the things you guys do as a program in the off season to kind of develop that culture and those leadership that you're seeing in some of those seniors?
Yeah, especially with Merrill, with declining enrollment and things like that, we're not getting bigger. I mean, the days of Merrill in the Valley and having those types of numbers are long gone. So we really do encourage, 3-sport athletes getting out there in the winter and the spring as well. If that doesn't happen, we make sure that there's a paid position where we have the weight room open every day after school. And in the wintertime, it's a lot of just your normal weight room hours and things like that. But then once spring hits, typically what we'll do is we'll start our, opening the gym for seniors to come in and lead some captain's practices and things like that. And transitioning out to the field even later in the spring, out on the turf in the mornings, let the seniors lead the show. So that's kind of the big thing in the winter season, is getting those current juniors, next year's leaders together and, trying to get them all on the same page so that they're leading these captain's practices in the vision of the program and what we want things to happen. It's not just 7-on-7 going out and slinging it all the time, but, actually throwing some lineman drills in there and some footwork and some zone blocking, zone right, zone left, all that good stuff. So it's not quite a free-for-all as they would like, but trying to set some of that up. And then in the summer, just again with our weight room program, just trying to get all the grade levels from bottom to top in as much as possible. And I mean, that's the biggest hardship, I'd say, as a program. And I know all the schools struggle with that, getting kids out this day and age in the weight room in the summer and putting the work in when it's not easy to do. Everybody wants to work, they want to make money, there's 900 reasons not to, but man, if you want to take a program to the next level, you need buy-in from a good core group of kids in each grade level to kind of pull everyone else in. So we're not quite there, but I think this past year is better than it has been, so that's
awesome.
A plus.
Great.
Let's talk about some of the kids there. Let's start with you said you have a dozen seniors back who are both in terms of, the leadership in the locker room, on the sidelines, and, of course, between the lines, because you got to get that production there as well. Who are some of the kids that have maybe learned from experience, learned from a few knocks that you are hoping to take significant steps forward to allow your team to earn a few more W's on the field?
Yeah. So quarterbacking this year is going to be number 0, Aiden Lonsdorf. He's coming in kind of in that new role. I think maybe back in middle school he might have played some quarterback and things like that, but he's going to step in this year as the quarterback, and he's more of a quiet leader, but he does lead by example. The kid, he works his butt off in the weight room. I'm not sure he missed a single day since October. He's a workhorse, and that's the type of thing that I'd love to see from somebody in that position specifically. Jax Hansen, he's going to be kind of our bell cow this year. So we got one running back that's more of a bruiser, and then we have another one that's a smaller guy like myself, a little more shifty though probably. Callum Wheeler. Callum Wheeler's going to be more of our scat back type guy. Offensive line, we got 3 seniors that are going to be on that group this year: Joshua Risty, Austin Depius, Carson Brooks. So I don't know if I could have. This is year 4 for me as the head coach. I'm not sure I've ever had a line where I had 3 seniors starting, which that alone should hopefully be a positive for us. Defensively, we have a number of guys coming back as well. E.J. Wykes, we're going to use him on both sides of the ball. He's just a solid kid. We'll put him back at safety. He's going to play outside linebacker for us this week. I'm not sure I've coached a defensive player that has as much wherewithal and knowledge on that side of the ball as he has. There was an instance at the scrimmage last Thursday where I called a stunt between my defensive tackle and the defensive end on the strong side, and EJ came up before the snap and asked me if he could stem up to make it look like he's blitzing to get the attention of the offensive tackle, so that one more wrinkle and then he could bail back out to get to his spot. I'm like, yeah, man. Like, I love that that's going through your head. Like, sure. That's such an advanced thing. Like, those are the types of things. He's like the sheriff, our defensive backfield, and that defensive side of the ball. I feel good about where we're at, especially on the defense. We have a lot of guys coming back. Offensively, we got some new faces. Some old faces, but in some new spots. Mm-hmm. So, hopefully we can put things together here.
So we've talked a lot about it tonight, or even preparing for the show. You guys, same conference, some different faces in it. How do you feel about the 2 who are gone and the new ones coming in? And does it change anything? Is it exciting to have some new opponents? What are your thoughts?
It is very exciting not to travel to Hayward and Ashland anymore.
So you chose to go to Osceola instead.
Yeah. We had to keep one long trip. We couldn't get too comfortable here. The prospect of losing those 2 and bringing in Tomahawk and East, just in terms of proximity and the opportunity for rivalry development and things like that. Like, to me, that's huge in high school football. I think they're both going to be very competitive, comparable teams in the Great Northern Conference. I think it's a win for everyone involved. I'm excited to play Tomahawk this year. I know we did that Futures game last year, week 10 or whatever I guess you could call it, against Wausau East. So that was kind of a fun way to get them into the
welcome them.
Yeah, welcome them into the conference. Like, it was a little bit of a gamble on our part after not winning a game all season and knowing that you have your 3 sport athletes who are going to go off and do wrestling and play basketball, and the head coach wants to play one more game after they lost 9 in a row. Like, this is kind of crazy, but it worked out. Like, we ended up squeaking one out against Wausau East last year at the end without playing any seniors, and it was a roll of the dice. But when you're able to do that and build a little bit of confidence going into the off season, I feel like it was the right move. Looking back, hindsight's 2020. If it would have went the other way, it could have been a bonehead move too. So that's life.
why you're the head man.
I would agree with you though. I think it's a good move. I think it's a good move either way. I think it kind of speaks to where you guys are as a program and the direction you want to head. Because I've been in that situation before too, and it would be a heck of a lot easier to turn in the equipment and start planning for next year. So I give you a lot of credit for doing that. I think it was a great decision.
I think my wife would have appreciated it had we been done after Mosinee, that stomping we had week 9. It would have been time, but
Before we ask you about this week's game and to get ready for week number 1, you said it. You're in your 4th season. Again, we're talking to Jason Wadzinski, the head football coach at Merrill. 4th year. In this era, frankly, 4 years is getting to be some of the more experienced coaches at one program because you see a lot of turnover right now. Yeah. As you look at the program, what are the areas that you are most happy with? What are maybe the areas that, here in year number 4, we have to take steps forward in, not just, what you see on a Friday night, but generally within the program?
I would say the biggest thing that, we'll start with the things that I think need to improve. Is just retaining athletes, keeping them out for football. It is a difficult, it's hard. Football's hard. That's why we lose a lot of kids. I think as a staff, there are probably times where we need to be more positive, more uplifting. I'm not going to lie, it's not easy when you have seasons like you had last year. But those are the coaching staffs that high school kids want to play for. They don't want to play for guys that are, old curmudgeons and getting on them all the time and no positive reinforcement, things like that. We need to retain more kids so that program can keep building rather than having the ups and downs that ride or die by the number of seniors you have out. If you can get a solid core group of 10 or more guys every year in that senior class at our level, I think that pays dividends and goes a long way. If you can't, then you're going to live or die by just the numbers of upperclassmen. With that said, I do think that we've had some success. We can't look at last year, but the year before, things were trending. Year 1, it was a couple wins. Year 2, I think we got up to 5 or whatever it was and made the playoffs. And so we've had success. It's just trying to get back to that point where we can stack some of those things together. We've been in a lot of games, but we just haven't been able to finish for 4 quarters, especially this past season.
And this week, you said it. It's a trek, but it's going to be a nice night. So that's the good part of it. You're not going to be battling any winter roads or anything like that. But Osceola, I guess number 1, what do you know about your opponent? And number 2, what do you want to see? Again, in terms of making the playoffs, this does not count. It's about getting ready, I think, number 1 as well for your conference campaign, but at the same time, as you said, stacking W's is a great way to gain confidence, but your opponent and what do you want to see this week?
Well, here's the thing about Osceola. Obviously, playing the middle border conference, I think pound for pound, that one's up there with one of the toughest conferences in the state of Wisconsin, even without Rice Lake in there now. They're going to come out in their flex bone, run their triple option, their midline, their veer. They're going to do it well because they've done it forever. From my understanding, I believe, looking at the roster and things like that, now we only play them, non-con. This is the second year, so I don't have a ton of familiarity with Osceola, but they were young last year, so I would imagine they probably retained a lot of those kids because that's what consistent good programs do, which Osceola I would qualify as a consistent good program. So they'll probably have more upperclassmen this year than they had last year because last year they were pretty young, full of some younger guys, and I expect them to be pretty darn good. Just looking at the scrimmage film, the quarterback is awfully shifty, as a lot of those option quarterbacks are. He's going to be somebody that we're going to have to get a cap on every single time and then gang tackle. Whenever you play the option, it comes down to, are you going to do your job or not? And then if you don't for 1 or 2 plays, it could be incredibly costly. So it's going to be a matter of playing disciplined and Then offensively, just trying to move the chains and keep them off the field a little bit, limit their possessions. I know last year, week 1, I was just watching the film last night because, I just wanted to go back and enjoy that moment, that 41-0 shutout.
You guys, these coaches are just like glutton for punishment sometimes, I tell you.
We turned the ball over the first 2 possessions last year. I think it was, we had a decent gain on first down. Second down, we stalled out. Third down, we threw an interception. And I think they scored 2 touchdowns and only had 30 yards of total offense 4 minutes into the game.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to not allow a game like that to snowball into something worse than,
right.
And then, shot ourselves in the foot a lot with offensive penalties, some false starts and things like that. It seemed like we had one every drive. It's like those are the types of things where you can't go up against a good opponent and do that. And Osceola is going to be a good opponent because they always are. Hopefully, being a little more experienced this year and having some guys that have done it and started and having more seniors, we can avoid some of those costly, silly errors, shooting yourselves in the foot with those penalties, things like that, and just trying to win the turnover battle.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot harder to lose games when you're winning the turnover battle. So,
Jason, anything else for Coach Wadzinski?
Just excited to see how things go. It was great talking with you today. It sounds like you guys are heading in the right direction. It's going to be fun to watch this year. Good luck this week.
thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Merrill head football coach Jason Wadzinski. We're going to take a quick time out, be right back, continue our previews. Coming up next, Big High School Sports Show on 98.9 WXCO. On Friday night, it's the start of a new season for the Wausau West High School football team. The Warriors travel to Superior to take on the Spartans. Hear all the exciting action live on 98.9 WXCO, online at bullfallsradio.com. Mobile devices by searching WXCO and on the Civic Media app. Starting with the pregame show at 6:35 and the opening kickoff at 7 p.m. Wausau West football on WXCO is brought to you by Domtar, the Clover Belt Credit Union, Red Robin Restaurants, Sun Printing, North Star Restoration, and the Wausau West Athletic Department. It's Wausau West at Superior in high school football. Friday night, starting with the pregame show at 6:35 and the opening kickoff at 7 p.m. On your home for Wausau West Sports, 98.9 WXCO. Online at bullfallsradio.com. Mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO and on the Civic Media app. And welcome back. Big High School Sports Show on 98.9 FM and 1230 AM WXCO. Online at bullfallsradio.com. Mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO and on the Civic Media app. Again, thanks to Merrill High School football coach Jason Wadzinski for joining us. Coming up at 7:06, we'll be joined by DC Everest football senior offensive lineman Oscar Latendresse. So that's coming up at 7:06 here. And make sure you join us every Wednesday night for 2 hours of nothing but high school sports talk with the Big High School Sports Show here on Bull Falls Radio 98.9 and 1230. Continuing to talk a bit about the conferences. Again, we focus for the most part on 4 central Wisconsin conferences. The Wisconsin Valley, the Great Northern, and then the CWC, both the large and the small. We talked about the Valley and the GNC earlier and talking about the CWC-Large to begin with. And Jason Foster, I mean, it is... at the top, there are some really good and really successful programs. I mean, this looks to be a very tough conference for anybody that's part of the CWC-Large in this new alignment.
Yeah, I think if you look across the state, you'd be hard-pressed to find a more difficult conference when you look at those lower 3 divisions. I mean, you have some perennial powerhouses, and when you think high school football in the state of Wisconsin, you think Stratford, Colby, Amherst, and then, Wittenberg, Burnhamwood, Wyowega, Fremont, and Marathon sprinkled in there too. Some consistent, really solid programs. So this is a meat grinder. I think we're going to have a lot of fun talking about these matchups this year.
And the thing about it is Stratford won a state championship a year ago. They have been so good recently. They've been bumped up to Division 5 because of the competitive balance formulation. But the thing is, they're going to be competitive. not only in this very tough conference, but I think also in the postseason in D5, because they do have a lot of talent returning as well. I mean, this looks like it's not a team that won a state championship and then said goodbye to all their talent. This is a team that, and Stratford's done it in the past as well, where they just keep maintaining a very high level of play. And again, going into the season, I think they would go in as the favorite.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you look at the scrimmage last Friday, and they come over and they scrimmage DC Everest and Wausau West and Mosinee, and while the sidelines look a lot different with the number of kids standing on them, they compete, and they're not afraid of anybody. And like all good football, there starts at the line of scrimmage. And if there's one thing you can count on, it's that they're always going to be solid at the point of attack.
And they also have a quarterback who put up really, really good numbers last year. Jack Tubbs, 25 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, hit on nearly 3/4 of his passes. Obviously, he's got a close relationship with the coach, knows his football, obviously. Having that quarterback who has success, who has that, I'm sure, leadership, big factor again for Stratford going into the season.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's a state championship program. They've won back-to-back state championships, and his dad's the head coach. I mean, I think you put those things together, and there's probably not a lot of teams in the state of Wisconsin that he wouldn't be their starting quarterback on if he was on.
Colby, solid. I saw them last season when they played Marathon, a very strong football team, a very strong football program. And then you look at Colby, you look at Wittenberg-Burnhamwood, you look at Amherst. Again, it's a different kind of challenge with Stratford there now permanently. Now, I mean, because those were schools that were in different conferences than Stratford for a long time. When you look at it from their perspective, is this a good thing for them? Is this not such a good thing? Obviously, you want to win your conference, but in terms of being ready for a playoff run, how strong do you want your conference? I guess is the way to put it, because I'm sure you want it to be strong, but sometimes you don't want it to be too strong.
Yeah, I look at the top 4 teams in that conference, and I think obviously Stratford's the front runner. It would surprise me if one of them's able to knock Stratford off. We'll see. Anything can happen in a football season, but I do think it. I mean, everyone wants to win a conference championship. That's where it starts. That's for lack of a better way of putting it, that's the easiest championship to win, right? Because from there you got to win 5 games to be a state championship or to win a state championship. So, but I do think that, especially now when you look at the fact that Stratford's going Division 5 in the playoffs, so these teams don't have to worry about seeing them because their chances are they're going to end up in that same section. So I think that is a little bit more of a light at the end of the tunnel, but it can certainly be a negative mentally as well. I mean, if you embrace that and know that you're going to go compete against them and you're going to know how you stack up when you walk out of Stratford at the end of the night, or if they're at your place, if you can embrace that and move forward and use that to your advantage through the rest of your conference season. But I think it could also be a little demoralizing too. If you walk in there and you know you got the road goes through them and they really hand it to you, I think you could have the potential to take a step back as well. But there's no question those 2, 3, 4, maybe even 5th team in that conference will come out ready for a playoff run.
I think actually go maybe even 6 deep, because you have Wyoming Fremont, who came out and really had a season to remember, at least for the first 6 weeks. Then all of a sudden you talk about schedule again. The schedule got really hard at the end for Wyoming Fremont. I think it was Colby, Wittenberg, Burnhamwood, and Stratford in those 3 games, and then they got Stratford again in the playoffs. So obviously it turned from a 6-0 to a 6-4, but at the same time, it's a program that has taken major steps forward in terms of its competitiveness in recent years, and Marathon. And of course, we have Marathon here on WXCO on Friday night. They'll open up their season with a non-conference game against Pittsville, a game that you'll be able to hear on the Sports 2 stream of bullfallsradio.com and the Civic Media app starting at 6:35 and on tape delay following our Wausau West broadcast here on WXCO. But I was saying to somebody that Marathon, who made the playoffs, had a heartbreaker in the postseason, going to Auburndale, leading 18-0 in the second half, seeing that game slip away and lose 21-18, that this is a team that could actually be as good or better than the team last season and struggle because of just how hard this conference is. But with a young player like True Thurs, who's moving from running back to quarterback, and I think, again,
Then you can start talking about those last levels.
And let me put your coaching hat, your program building hat on for the other 4 schools in that league, because I think for especially 3 of them, Assumption, Pacelli, and Rochelle, numbers are always going to be a problem. Those are very small schools that have had issues with numbers from time to time. It does feel like Assumption does, according to comments from their coach, that they do have some decent talent back, and then you have Pittsville as well in there. How do you look at it when the challenge with a very good top half of this conference now, a much tougher road to the playoffs than these teams even had just 1 year ago?
Yeah, this is really it's a numbers game. Like they're not going to get to 50, 75, 100 athletes like some of the bigger schools do. But you got to have your core, and then it becomes culture building, and establishing a weight room program. I mean, I think when you look at the Edgars, the Stratfords, right, the Amhersts of the world who have the multiple state championships, that's really what it comes down to. And you eliminate the excuse making. You eliminate when there's expectations in the off season, everybody does them. And when you're preparing in the summertime, people aren't scheduling their family vacations at the time when you have kind of like that. It's just a different culture, and I think it starts in the weight room, and then it's what you do in the off season, and not just the summertime. It's what you do 12 months of the year, because these football teams that are in those semis and championship games year in and year out, it is a 12-month season. That's not to say that their athletes don't play other sports,
right? But
it's the coaching staff and those key players. There is football going on year round.
Absolutely. So that's a look at the 4 conferences that we are going to keep a very close eye on during the course of this 2024 football season. We are halfway through this first edition of the Big High School Sports Show for 2024. Coming up, we'll have an information update, news, weather, and sports, and then hour number 2. And we'll start off with DC Everest senior offensive lineman Oscar Latendresse. He is our first student-athlete guest for this year. So Evergreen Oscar Latendresse coming up, and then we will preview the non-conference action. Yep, it's non-conference here in the first 2 weeks, so we'll talk about some interesting matchups in week number 1 of the high school football season as well. With Jason Foster, I'm Chad Holmes. It is the Big High School Sports Show on 98.9 WXCO.
A game without a crowd is just a scrimmage. A performance without an audience is just a rehearsal. Without your presence, high school sports and the performing arts aren't possible. Ensure that these essential extracurricular activities continue to enrich the lives of students in Wisconsin. Purchase a ticket to your local high school's game or performance.
This message presented by the WIAA and the Wisconsin Athletic Directors Association.
WXCO 1230 AM, W255DN Wausau, streaming at bullfallsradio.com.
And welcome back. Season premiere of the Big High School Sports Show. 98.9 FM, 1230 AM, WXCO. Online at bullfallsradio.com. Mobile devices by searching WXCO and on the Civic Media app. And it's time for our first student-athlete guest for this year. And from DC Everest Senior High School, returning all-conference offensive tackle, Oscar Latendresse. And Oscar, thank you for coming on over and joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
A lot to talk about because you're number one, a multi-sport athlete, which is always a cool thing. But we'll start off. It's the start of your senior season. As I said, you were an all-conference performer a year ago. Your team had a solid season a year ago, going 7-3 overall. What's the excitement? There's obviously the excitement of coming off a pretty good season, but you want to probably take some steps forward. But quite a bit of change at DC Everest as well. What's the feeling around your team to start off the season?
I'd say overall positive. I mean, I think in the offseason we've put in a lot of good work. We put in all the time, all the effort to kind of fill those holes that kind of opened up in the offseason. But I think going forward right now, week one, we're looking pretty good.
new coach. And actually last spring, right after the announcement was made, I had a chance to talk to him. He came on by. We had a nice discussion, interview. Young guy. Obviously, it's different. I mean, he was part of the program last year, but what has the change been like? And I actually went to DC Everest a long time ago, and there was always this great tradition with Coach Steffenhagen, and then folks who worked for Coach Steffenhagen. It's a bit of a change for DC Everest. What's been the feeling around the new head coach and just generally the new coaching staff?
I mean, Coach Mitchell, he's a great guy, great coach, puts in a lot of effort. I mean, he plays the right guys, does the right moves, all that type of stuff. But I think moving forward right now, with him in our head coach position, I think we're heading to a good place. I think he brings a lot to the table, not only head coaching-wise, but kind of revamping our offense. He did a lot of last year, and he kind of advanced that this year.
Let's talk about your teammates. You're one of the returners and obviously one of the returning starters. You got a pretty good returning core, don't you? Could you talk a little bit about some of the guys starting on the offensive side of the football with you, obviously as one of the anchors at the tackle position? Got a returning starting quarterback in Logan George, but generally, how do you feel about your offense going into the season?
I have high hopes for us. I believe that we'll be one of the top in the conference, if not the top. And I believe that with our returning guys, I mean, we got 2 returning starting wide receivers, 2 returning starting tight ends, a returning quarterback, returning running back. So I believe that we're in a very good spot.
Having that kind of experience back and coming into the start of practice, starting, even during the off season, you guys know each other. What kind of advantage is that when you do have a pretty good core of returners? Does it allow you to get off to a quicker start when practice gets underway?
A little bit, yeah. I mean, not only for the starting returning guys, but also kind of adds that little level of the dudes under us that are kind of getting that experience, that little game stuff going in at practice that kind of takes it up a notch. That helps out with the intensity and everything. You
mentioned Coach Mitchell had joined the program and did some revamping just a year ago. Whenever somebody comes in and changes things up, whether it's on the offensive side or the defensive side, it can take a little time to gel. Do you find it coming to start off again this year that it's easier? Do you feel like you're a little ahead of the curve just with that factor as well?
A little bit. I mean, last year is more or less getting the schemes in, but this year we kind of renamed everything, went through all of our running plays, schemes, everything has a new name to it, so it's kind of coming in and learning that, and that's the first step to it. But now coming into it, now that we have it down, we're looking really good.
Again, we're talking to senior offensive tackle Oscar Latendresse of the DC Everest Evergreens, senior for the Evergreens as we get set for the kickoff of the season for DC Everest on Thursday night. And we'll talk about the game with Rice Lake a little bit later on, but just looking at your social media and seeing what's been going on during the last offseason, obviously as a senior, as somebody that has been honored by your conference. I see you're listed as one of the top returning offensive linemen on WIS Sports as well. You've had quite a bit of contact with colleges, and I'm not going to spoil it by saying that you're wearing a college T-shirt here tonight, but can you talk a little bit about what it's been like, especially since the end of last season? Obviously now with one more year of high school to go, you have to make up your mind on what you want to do with the next level of your academic and athletic career. But what's it been like in terms of having a number of different colleges reach out to you, have them, want you to visit, give you offers? Could you talk a little bit about that experience as an incoming high school senior?
It's nice and everything. I mean, there's a lot of work that goes into it, a lot more than people don't realize. A lot of stuff behind the scenes, kind of keeping that relationship throughout with all the coaches. I mean, you go through daily texts, daily calls. It's kind of keeping that relationship through with, for me, I've been blessed to be in a position with 10 or 11 coaches reaching out consistently. So I think that being in this position, it's nice, but it's also a little bit more than people think.
Let's kind of delve into that because, as you said, when you have a lot of college interest. And I'm sure there's a lot of impressive coaches, a lot of impressive universities, a lot of impressive football programs. In a sense, there's a lot to go through. I mean, there's a lot that goes into a decision. It's not just the football aspect. It's obviously the academic aspect. It's the fit culturally, wherever you may go. How have you tried to maybe put the pieces together to ultimately make the best decision for yourself?
For myself, I've had a lot of support from my family, and what we've done is we've gone through and kind of, to limit through some of the schools, is we chose what really mattered to me. For me, I'm looking for a good team culture, good coaching staff, and a fun town, something that I can see myself going to. So we kind of went through all the schools, ranked all that, and just kind of really saw where I stood with everyone there. So it was kind of a neat experience to kind of see, like, yeah, you go out there, you see everything, but you don't want to get caught up in the moment too much.
Have you made a decision?
I have, but that announcement will be coming here.
Oh, no breaking news for us here.
Not yet, nope.
No, I understand that completely, and I completely respect that. But I imagine you're excited to make that announcement, because I think that for over the years doing this program and talking to student athletes that have gone through this process, it's not an easy process, and it does take a lot of weight off the shoulders once that decision is made, doesn't it?
100%. And my biggest thing is I wanted to get done before my senior season so I could go through and play and just have fun and not have to worry about all the extra stuff.
Again, we were with Oscar Latendresse, the DC Everest Evergreens offensive tackle here on 98.9 WXCO in the Big High School Sports Show. Let's step away from the football aspect, because, as I said, you've been somebody that's been very active in other sports. What other sports have you been involved with?
Throughout my high school career, I've done wrestling and baseball along with football.
I think with football, as I said, with your all-conference honors, it's been outstanding. But on the mat, you made it to the state tournament just last winter, correct?
Correct, yeah, I did.
Was that your first trip to state in wrestling?
It was only my second year wrestling, so I kind of picked it up my sophomore year when our starting heavyweight broke his ankle in the middle of our Stevens Point game.
Oh.
So I was kind of in the weight room at the time lifting, coming through the locker room, and they're doing all their weight tests, P tests, all that type of stuff, and that's when I got suckered into taking the cup and peeing in it for the hydration test, and kind of haven't turned back since.
Well, let me ask I think the obvious question. How the heck does a guy that was not involved in wrestling and on the team, it sounds like you weren't on the team, were you?
Nope.
How does somebody that just gets brought in to replace an injured teammate in 2 short years end up at the state tournament? How did that happen? Was it just something that came naturally to you?
A little bit, but it took a while. I mean, I got to thank all my coaches and teammates that pushed me and got me to the spot where I was. I mean, really, I started my sophomore year, I was behind everyone. Started on varsity, kind of wrestled a few really good guys, and kind of got it handed to me, but it was a lot of learning curves.
In terms of being, I mean, you said it, you were involved in 3 sports for a time. Do you take maybe success that you had? Let's take last year, football season. Again, your team goes 7-3. You are all conference, and then you go into the winter sports season on the mats. Are you able to carry any kind of momentum? If things go well in the fall, does that help you get off to a good start in the winter?
A little bit. I mean, I always see it as football and volleyball, those 2 fall sports. I'd say that we set the precedent on the year for the sports. I mean, we both have good years. That'll carry out through. It's all about culture in our school.
Both football and wrestling are contact sports. And
yep.
You get in the trenches on the offensive line. Are any of the skills involved transferable between the two?
Oh, 100%. I mean, it's all about moving weight, pushing weight, all that type of stuff. And I mean, heavyweight wrestling, it's not a lot of shooting. It's not a lot of that. It's about weight displacement and weight movement and who can move their weight better.
Are you planning on, again, being involved in wrestling this year? Because I know that with some athletes, again, when you have that decision that's been made to what college you're going to ultimately go to, sometimes you step away not wanting to take any chances on injury or anything like that. Are your plans still to wrestle this coming winter?
I've gone back and forth, but ultimately I see myself ending up on the mat again.
Is it something because you had the success last year, you made it to state, that you feel like there's still a little unfinished business on the mats?
A little bit, and I also don't want to be stepping away from my team, and it's kind of in that sense of me walking away from my second family.
Let's talk about leadership then, because I mean, based on that answer, obviously you do have some individual skills in both those sports, but at the same time, they're team sports. They're a little bit different team sports because on the football field, you're out there with 10 other players and you're trying to execute your job, and then hopefully everybody else executes as well, and you're able to drive down the field and ultimately score and win some football games. Wrestling team is about doing your job and then also having your teammates do their job, not at the same time. How is an individual team sport different than maybe the team sport? Do you have the same camaraderie on the wrestling team as you do on the football team?
I'd say, if anything, wrestling, we're kind of more of a tighter-knit group. I mean, we go through a lot of stuff. I mean, practices are heavy, long, tough. I mean, you go through that experience together. That's kind of what brings you together more. And as a team, I mean, it's an individual sport, but how we do individually affects how the team goes. So everyone's in your corner every match, cheering you on, right there for you. And I'd say football is pretty close, too. I mean, I'm not knocking on football at all, but I'd just say with the group of guys that we have throughout the wrestling group, I'd say that we're probably a tighter-knit group.
Being a multi-sport athlete, you have obviously, you have to keep up on your classwork. You have obviously, you got friends, you got probably other interests as well, which maybe I'll delve a little bit into. Time management is something that is pretty important for high school students, no matter whether you're on a sport or in another extracurricular activity. Have you been able over the years to get learn some tricks of the trade in order to make sure that you're performing at the highest level in all areas of your life?
I mean, yeah, a little bit. It's all about your priorities. You got to get them straight, especially being in high school, trying to have friends, trying to have a social life, trying to play sports, maybe get a job.
Looking at college in terms of the off the football field aspect, do you have any idea of a study that you want to get into, maybe a major or anything like that, or have you not made that decision yet?
Something that's always sparked my interest was like the financial side of things, so I can really see myself going into a finance degree.
When you're not in school, when you're not in the weight room, when you're not at football practice or wrestling practice or meets or games, what do you like to do to get away from it? Is there anything that you're able to say, okay, I just want to kind of chill a little bit? What do you like to do outside of sports and study?
A lot of it is just kind of hanging around home, hanging around with friends and family. I am a video game player. I do dive into the new NCAA here recently. But it's just a lot of laying low here and there. I mean, you go out, you do stuff, but there's not a ton to do around here, honestly, aside from sitting in the usual Walmart parking lot and just kind of talking and fooling around. But it's just a lot of sitting and just spending time with each other. Over
the decades since I went to school over on that side of town, I don't think things have changed too much.
No.
As you look forward to your college, we'll get back to your season here coming up, but as you look forward to being best prepared to compete at the college level, have you got words from future coaches, or do you have an idea on areas that you're going to focus on in order to be better through this year at the high school level, in order to be best prepared to make an impact when you do get to college?
The biggest thing I got was just keep putting in the work. Consistency is everything. You don't have that, you don't have anything. So you just got to stay consistent in whatever you're doing.
Let's get back to this year and DC Everest football and start of a new campaign. The conference is a little different. I'm curious. I've talked to folks involved in the Wisconsin Valley. It's a bit of a different field because they had a couple of teams from the eastern part of the state for the last number of years. Now got a couple of teams from Eau Claire with North and Memorial. Is that exciting to have a couple of new teams in the conference? Does it really matter to you at this point going into the season?
I mean, yeah, it's exciting. It's always exciting to kind of play someone new that you haven't played against. Just kind of that new competition feel of it. I mean, we've played Chippewa week 2 or week 1 pretty much every year. So they're not as new, but the two Eau Claire teams I'm looking forward to.
When you look at the conference this year, obviously you finished in a tie for second a year ago. Stevens Point kind of came out of nowhere after a tough year 2 years ago and won the conference championship. Based on what you know, I know that Stevens Point has quite a few players back. I'm sure you're very familiar with the Wausau West squad being here in the Wausau area, and of course with Rapids and Marshfield, always pretty solid programs. What's your sense about the conference this season? Do you have a feel for maybe the targets that DC Everest is going to have to get through?
I always say that our biggest competition right now is probably Spash for that conference title there. I'm not knocking on Wausau West. They're probably my favorite team to go against, honestly. It's just those crosstown rivals that you're going against. Depending if you win or lose, that's kind of how you kind of see them around town every year, and you get to see them and just kind of give them crap about it.
I kind of stole my next question. I was going to ask you about a favorite rival. Is it the same for wrestling and football when it comes to Wausau West as being a favorite rival?
A little bit. I mean, Wausau isn't historically good in wrestling as much, but
right.
As wrestling sides, it's probably more Rapids because they're always usually pretty good. And I'd say that we fare decently against them, but it's always about how competition-wise with us.
Is a very interesting first week. Facing a really good football program against Rice Lake as they come to steam on Thursday night. As you prepared for this game, what's jumped out? What are you thinking about in terms of getting ready for the season opener against, again, a very good opponent?
I mean, it just comes down to controlling what you can control. I mean, you can't do more than your own job. That's the biggest thing. I mean, we kind of broke down, watched film. We know what we're doing. We see some things. They probably see some things on us too, but our biggest thing is just sticking to what we do. So,
in terms of your offense, when things are going well, why is that? And when things are not going well, do you have a sense of why things don't go well? Is there a specific factor that during times of struggle offensively that you've seen that you may have to be better at this year? So I guess what should folks in the crowd be looking at, saying, hey, things are going well for DCE on the offensive side, and if you're doing something either wrong or not right, what would that be in terms of slowing it down?
Well, I'd say everything starts up front. Up front, we got to do our job. We got to block. We got to go in pass protection, all that type of stuff. If we're not doing that up front, we don't have any offense at all. But other than that, I mean, I'd say it's our connectivity, whether we're connected playing as one or if we're just kind of off doing our own thing, worrying about ourselves rather than the team as a whole.
And finally, two more questions. As you look at this season on the gridiron, in terms of goals, what are you and your teammates talking about? Do you have specific goals for this season, maybe team-wise and maybe even individually? Do you have any set goals for this? Obviously, a very important year, your senior year in high school.
I mean, my own personal goal is always just to have team success. I mean, the team's more important than I am. So, and I'd say as a team, we're probably looking at that conference title. That's what we want. And then bigger than that also is going into playoffs, getting those wins, getting those extra weeks. That's our biggest goal.
And finally, as somebody that's been involved in a number of sports, and I think we kind of touched on the fact that you've had a lot of experience both in football, wrestling, baseball as well. If you were, and I'm sure you see these younger student athletes that come in as a freshman in your programs, if you could give maybe a freshman or a sophomore a piece of advice that you've learned during your time at DC Everest in the athletic fields, what would that piece of advice be as they start their journey that you're getting closer to finishing up here in the next number of months?
I'd just say stick with it. If it feels right, if you're having fun and everything, just stick with it. If it feels more like a hassle than a hobby, it's probably time to stop doing it.
Fantastic. Again, really appreciate you stopping on over. Congrats on the success you've had in the past years, both on the gridiron and on the mats, and best of luck, and look forward to hearing that announcement to where you're going to college. But again, Oscar, thank you for coming on over.
Thank you.
Again, that's our first student-athlete guest of the season. Season number 8 of the Big High School Sports Show, joined by DC Everest senior offensive tackle Oscar Latendresse. Again, we will come back. We have plenty more to talk about. We're going to look ahead. Week number 1 of the season. Yep, the process begins towards the ultimate goal of making it to Camp Randall Stadium in late November. So we'll come back, look ahead to the matchups in week number 1 coming up here on the Big High School Sports Show on 98.9 and 1230 WXCO. On Friday night, the Marathon High School football team kicks off the 2024 season at home versus Pittsville. Hear the exciting action live on the Sports 2 stream of BullFallsRadio.com and on the Civic Media app, starting with the pregame show at 6:35 and the opening kickoff at 7 p.m. The game will also air on delay following the Wausau West game on 98.9 WXCO. Marathon football on WXCO is brought to you by Marathon Park City, Four Seasons Screen Printing, Brickners of Little Chicago, County Materials, the People's State Bank, Marathon Cheese, the Dirks Group, Marathon Family Dentistry, the Marathon Athletic Club, Fisher Transportation, Morgan Sand and Gravel, Rip Falls Fabrication, and BS Taxidermy. It's Marathon hosting Pittsville in high school football. Friday night starting at 6:35, live on the Sports 2 stream of BullFallsRadio.com and the Civic Media app, and on tape delay following Wausau West football on 98.9 WXCO. And welcome back. It is the Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9, online at bullfallsradio.com, mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO, and on the Civic Media app. And again, 2 terrific guests here this evening. And again, as we talk about all the time, that's something I hope that people appreciate, the opportunity for more long-form discussions with student athletes and with coaches. And we look forward to meeting a whole bunch of new faces and maybe a few old ones as well. But it was great to have Jason Wadzinski on, because we did not have him on last season, and another new guest here with Oscar Latendresse. So again, we really do enjoy having the opportunity to learn a little deeper about the coaches and players, don't we?
Yeah, definitely my favorite part of the show, and that's probably the best feedback I get from people in the community who listen to this show. Is how
they don't say it's me and you.
No, I've not heard that yet. Maybe this year. But.
No, it is fantastic. So again, every week we'll have a coach guest and a student athlete guest, and who knows, maybe we'll double dip once or twice during the course of the season as well. But hey, some action beginning tomorrow night. A lot of action, actually, for the Wisconsin Valley Conference schools. Most of the action, in fact, is on Thursday, a couple of games on Friday. So let's talk about Thursday and the DC Everest Evergreens. We just heard from, again, one of their standout performers in Oscar Latendresse. Start of a new era. Steam Stadium. And frankly, if you're going to start the new era, this is probably not the school you want to face. I mean, you talk about a tough matchup at the Rice Lake and Everest. Holy cow. I mean, oh yeah, Division III. Best in Division III. Yes. Obviously, a great matchup.
Yeah, year in and year out. If you just got done watching the Olympics, you saw the Olympic silver medalist who came out of Rice Lake High School,
Kung Fu Kenny,
and Kenny Bednarik. Yeah, it's a tough one for people who aren't out there, who aren't familiar with that part of the state and football. Like you said, they are a perennial Division III state champion contender, and they play like a D1 school. That is their attitude. That is their mindset. They will play anybody, anywhere. If you look at their schedule year in and year out, because for a minute they kind of got pulled out and were in more of that central Wisconsin. This is their first year back in this big rivers mix, but they want it out. They want to play the best teams in the state. They want to play the big schools because they want to be ready to play in the playoffs, and they are a really solid, well-coached program.
And the thing about these non-conference games, for the 11 players, we'll talk about the 8 players next week when they get their first week of action. But for 11 player, ultimately these games don't matter in terms of the playoffs. So yes, obviously every game you want to go out there and win. Obviously it will count in terms of seeding. I mean, you don't want to lose a couple of games and then all of a sudden find yourself as a 7 seed when you could have been a 3 or a 4 if you had taken maybe these games as seriously as you should. So obviously everybody's going to take it seriously, but at the same time, it is a great matchup, I think, for a team like DC Everest, because we've talked about this last year, and I talked about this with Paul Nowinski over the years as well, and the coaches that come in. The Wisconsin Valley Conference wants to step up. They want to be as good as these teams to the west and to the east. And this is a great opportunity to be prepared for the start of the conference season.
Yeah, I don't know how many years it goes back now, but I usually, when they play on Thursday, make it over to that game. And I don't know how many years it's been that they've been kind of playing, was it Preble or Southwest to start the year? It's usually a bloodbath. It's usually Everest kind of, so you walk out of there not really knowing who and what they're at. But it's kind of an intriguing matchup with new Everest coach going against an unknown Rice Lake, a much smaller school, and Rice Lake coming against the DC Everest with a brand new coach, not knowing exactly what to expect. So it should be a great game.
And you mentioned the fact that part of the new conference alignment is this reciprocal non-conference games against Valley and the Big Rivers. That's going to be something interesting to watch as well. That with this game between Rice Lake and DC Everest, you got also Thursday Stevens Point at Chippewa Falls. You got New Richmond at Marshfield. You have River Falls at Wisconsin Rapids and Menominee at Eau Claire North. And then Friday night, Wausau West at Superior, Eau Claire Memorial at Hudson. If you're a Wisconsin Valley Conference team, you don't want to look up there and see 0 wins at the end of this week, do you?
No, absolutely not. The one thing is this is one of those games where the superintendents don't love the busing costs or the mileage involved with these games.
Frankly, the broadcasters don't like the amount of time it takes to get there and back either, but that's a whole different subject.
So these are very interesting matchups. This is kind of a get-to-know-you situation here because in addition to these 2 non-conference games, each of these schools on both sides will play a mandatory crossover game that won't count from a conference standpoint, but definitely will count as a conference seeding win, and will be one of those 4 games you're trying to get to become playoff eligible.
Yep.
So some really important matchups here.
And what about some of these matchups? Let's see. Stevens Point at Chippewa Falls. Chippewa Falls pulled off one of the big upsets in the early rounds of the playoffs last year when they went to Hudson and as an 8 seed defeated a number 1 seed. So obviously the depth of the Big Rivers is always there. Stevens Point, again, going into the season with experience back and perhaps a favorite in the Valley. For Stevens Point, how important is it to go over there and maybe put a flag in, not as we talked about, not only as a non-conference win, but also, again, potentially later on having influence on those seedings?
I think this is a great matchup because talking about DC Everest a second ago, they always played Green Bay that first game and mopped the floor with them, and they've been playing Chippewa Falls week 2. And the last few years, those have been really, really good football games that have come down to the last possession. And we kind of know where DC Everest stacks up in our conference, so it will be very interesting to see how the 2024 Panthers match up against Chippewa Falls to start this year, and hopefully do make a statement.
Earlier in the show, when we were talking about the preview for this conference, didn't really talk much about Marshfield or Wisconsin Rapids. Both those teams will be home tomorrow night. Marshfield against New Richmond, Wisconsin Rapids against River Falls. When you look at those 2 programs, and obviously both have had great success over the years, and we've seen them on the turf at Camp Randall Stadium going for state championships. What's your feel about those programs right now?
I think maybe Marshfield is kind of heading back towards the top in the right direction, and I think Rapids is maybe struggling a little bit right now. I know that in talking with their athletic director that numbers is a concern for them right now as far as getting kids out for football. The one thing you always know about Rapids is they're going to be as strong as every opponent they step on the field with, and I think these are 2 really good week 1 matchups when you talk about what the Valley's going to look like, or what the Wisconsin Valley's going to look like, or what the Big Rivers, because both River Falls and New Richmond have finished near or at the top of that Big Rivers within the last 3 years.
In River Falls, I think it's a really tough matchup for Wisconsin Rapids. They're expected to battle Hudson near the top of that conference this year. And for Rapids, again, you said it earlier. I think, if you could make a quick, statement, a numbers game. Again, so much of success is about the numbers because you need the depth, and especially in a game like football. The idea of if you're playing at the Division I level of staying healthy the entire year is very, very difficult.
Right. Stratford can show up with those lower numbers and compete with the teams, but at this level, it's really hard to not be solid 2 deep on both sides of the ball.
Weston Superior tomorrow night. You said Friday night, actually. Friday night, Wausau Weston Superior, 6:35 airtime. I'll have the broadcast right here on 98.9 WXCO and online. But last season, it was an interesting game because West came in as the favorites in the conference. Superior came in a struggling program and ultimately didn't win any games last year. But the first week of the season, if a team is struggling in week 5 and 6, you kind of know who you are. Everybody thinks they got a great team in week 1, don't they? Especially when you're playing at home.
Yeah, and Superior comes in with a new old coach. He's been there before, but he's back, so he knows the community, the school. He knows the demographic of his team, and they didn't bring him back because he was doing a poor job, right? So they were probably excited to have him back. The kids and the team know him, and there's those X factors, right? You don't know who you are as a new Wausau West team, and that's a pretty good bus ride to head up there, and that plays a role. I mean, you can do all the things. You plan a stop on the way off, and you get off the bus, and you do all those things, but you have no idea what it looks like until the ball's kicked at 7 o'clock.
Well, I guess the only advantage is by luck of the draw, it turns in back-to-back years. So many of the kids and myself, well, do you know what the trek is like? Week number 1 of the season, back-to-back years. It's a long way to go, and you don't want to come home after an L.
Absolutely.
So you want to make sure you do the job, and hopefully you can join us again Friday night, 6:35 airtime, Wausau West at Superior, right here on 98.9 WXCO, BullFallsRadio.com, mobile devices, and Alexa by searching WXCO and on the Civic Media app. We're not going to talk Eau Claire Memorial at Hudson at this point.
They probably appreciate that.
Memorial wanted to get away from Hudson, I think, and they're going to go over there against a very good Raider team. So we'll talk a bit about it next week, just to find out what Hudson did before they come here to Wausau next week. But the Great Northern Conference, all the games are on Friday night, and Wausau East at Tom Field, getting things underway. Hopefully they don't tear up the turf too much for Wausau West. No, it's all good. But Wausau East and Westby. To be honest with you, I have no idea about Westby.
I have no idea. We don't know much about Wausau East with the change,
true.
so we'll know a lot more after Friday.
So how important is it for the Lumberjacks to get W's? I think we saw it last year. It was a jolt that first week when they got the W. Yep. And non-conference or conference for a program like East that has not had a lot of success, have had trouble getting teams on the field, wins are vital against whoever they come from, right?
Absolutely. And I think obviously you go into it planning to win, wanting to win, doing all the right things, but what you need in this brand new era, right? New conference, new opponent in Westby that you've never played before. I think you want to walk off the field at the end of that game knowing that you competed. Like you can fix it. There's going to be a lot of mistakes. You can fix a lot of mistakes. The one thing that's hard to swallow is coming out being unprepared or not having that level of compete. So I'm sure that's what coach is looking for week 1.
Great matchup between perennial powers, Mosinee and Stratford. It looks like a pretty tough one for the Mosinee squad. They lost a lot of really significant talent. Stratford, a state championship team, has, I think, a lot of talent coming back. But, boy, Mosinee's going to find out a thing or two, aren't they, on Friday?
They are. And I'll be honest, I love this matchup. I love the fact that Mosinee schedules it and that Stratford schedules it.
They played a tie the other year. Was it last year or the year before? I can't remember.
2 years ago.
2 years ago.
Yeah. And I think it's a great matchup, and I give both schools and both programs a lot of credit for doing it. It's definitely a good measuring stick to start the year. This year probably won't be as close as it's been the last couple, but I think Mosinee will learn a lot in this game.
When you look at some of the other matchups, and we didn't really talk about teams like Antigo and some of the others, Lakeland and Rhinelander in that conference. As you said, it's interesting to see these squads where you see some of them start off really well, others start off poorly, then others turn around. For the Great Northern Conference, we talked a little bit about the Wisconsin Valley Conference in this respect, but it's important for them to take some steps forward too. I know it's something we've talked about over the years on this program, but I think just for the well-being of football in North Central Wisconsin, the GNC they got some programs. I mean, Antigo. I mean, you remember it. I remember it. Back when Gordy Schofield was coaching, I mean, they were in the Valley and they were beating the Wisconsin Valley Conference teams, winning state championships. Again, you like to see, I think, some of these programs, revive a little bit. But again, so many of them have had those numbers issues.
Yeah, and I think that's it. I think there is some old school traditional Wisconsin Valley Conference teams in that conference. The Anagos, the Rhinelanders, Merrill's in there. Wausau East is now in there, so there's 4 of them. So there's definitely some. I mean, I think we talked about East. It's a great opportunity for them to get in there and maybe build some of their tradition back. But yeah, I watched the Pigskin preview on Channel 12 about Anago, and they spent most of the time talking about the tradition and not a lot of time talking about what's coming forward. So no, I do think I think it'll be great for some of those schools to be more competitive. Is Lakeland, is it their time to step up? And maybe, I mean, this might be the year for somebody to step over Mosinee if it isn't Medford Mosinee at the top. So it's a kind of a little bit of a little less predetermined than it's been the last few years.
We'll take a look at the other games featuring CWC squads, both the large and the small, coming up as we continue. Again, it's week number 1. And hopefully you can join us every week for the Big High School Sports Show. But we'll have more coming up in just a moment here on 98.9 WXCO. On Friday night, it's the start of a new season for the Wausau West High School football team. The Warriors travel to Superior to take on the Spartans. Hear all the exciting action live on 98.9 WXCO, online at BullFallsRadio.com. Mobile devices by searching WXCO and on the Civic Media app, starting with the pregame show at 6:35 and the opening kickoff at 7 p.m. Wausau West football on WXCO is brought to you by Domtar, the Clover Belt Credit Union, Red Robin Restaurants, Sun Printing, North Star Restoration, and the Wausau West Athletic Department. It's Wausau West at Superior in high school football. Friday night, starting with the pregame show at 6:35 and the opening kickoff at 7 p.m. on your home for Wausau West Sports, 98.9 WXCO, online at BullFallsRadio.com. Mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO and on the Civic Media app. And welcome back. Big High School Sports Show on WXCO, 98.9 FM, 1230 AM, online at bullfallsradio.com, mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO and on the Civic Media app. Again, thanks to all of our guests so far. Our final segment here as we continue to preview week number 1. Solo for the final segment. And just for total transparency, which we always do, the last number of years, the first week of the show is always the one and only pre-recorded. We actually pre-recording this one on Tuesday instead of Wednesday because for the first week of the season on Wednesday evening, I have to be out at Tom Field for a Meet the Warriors event as radio voice of the Wausau West football team, and they asked me to be with them and announce the team and be part of that great evening. So we pre-record, and unfortunately, having to go and get to a meeting was Jason Foster. So I'm going to wrap things up here on my own, talk about the last couple of conferences in terms of our week 1 preview. But next week we'll be live, and the rest of the time we'll be live from our studios. And if you're downtown Wausau on a Wednesday evening, just walk on by and see us in front of the microphones as we have a street side studio. And it's a lot of fun to be right here in downtown and to have folks stop on by and join us here in studio. But looking at the Central Wisconsin Conference Large, all the games will be played on Friday here in week number 1. As we talked about a little bit earlier, I think the best matchup is Mosinee and Stratford. And again, Stratford Tigers, defending state champs, but moving up because of their success ratio. Division 5 this year. And Mosinee, again, had a really, really heartbreaker to get knocked out of the playoffs in Level 2 a year ago. But, boy, they had such a fantastic season, winning the Great Northern Conference. It should be a terrific matchup in Stratford on Friday night. Again, a game that Jeremy Cole will have the play-by-play for on WXCO on Friday. The Marathon Red Raiders opening up their season, taking on the Pittsville Panthers. And again, that game can be heard live on the Sports 2 stream of bullfallsradio.com and the Civic Media app, starting with the pregame show at 6:35 and the opening kickoff at 7 o'clock. And that game will also air on a tape delay basis immediately following our coverage of Wausau West football at Superior on Friday night. So again, Pittsville at Marathon live on the Sports 2 stream of bullfallsradio.com and the Civic Media app. If you have not downloaded the Civic Media app yet, it's real simple, free app. Just go to your app store, search Civic Media, download it, and then all the Civic Media stations are on there. And the fifth one down is Bull Falls Radio, and you'll be able to Go right there, listen to our main stream, listen to our Sports 2 stream, and our Sports 3 stream, and we'll be using all three streams some Friday nights during the course of the high school football season. But the game itself, Marathon made the playoffs a year ago. It was a good return to the playoffs for Marathon, had a terrific performance for 3 quarters in their level 1 game. They took an 18-0 lead at Auburndale, looked like they were on their way to a big road win, beating a team that they had lost to in the regular season, but then Auburndale came back and pulled it out late 21-18. True Thurs will be a kid to keep an eye on. Boy, very impressive player for Marathon. Last season as a running back, this season he's going to be playing quarterback, and it's going to be a little bit of a different look for the Marathon offense. It's going to be a lot put on the shoulders of True Thurs. It's going to be vitally important for Marathon to be able to keep him healthy, because if they don't keep him healthy, it will be very, very difficult for the Red Raiders in a very tough conference this year. So again, Marathon could be a more talented team, but could be a very tough time returning to the playoffs just because of all the talent in the CWC-Large. Pittsville, meantime, is a team from the CWC-Small. They started last season off red hot. They won 4 games to open up the season, and then it looked as though they're on their way to the postseason. They lost their final 5 games, came up short of the postseason playoffs, and finished 4-5 on the season. But not an easy matchup for Pittsville to open things up at Marathon. Another very interesting matchup is Wittenberg-Burnhamwood against Bonduelle. And this has always been for that part of the state, Bonduelle and the eastern part of the state, eastern part of Marathon County to Shawano County for Whitburn. These schools have had a long tradition in athletics generally. Some good athletic programs. Bonduelle's been a solid team. It's not an easy place to go to Bonduelle High School, and that will be the case for Wittenberg-Burnhamwood. And for Whitburn, boy, the last number of years have been outstanding. They had such a long drought when it came to making the playoffs after an incredibly long stretch of playoff football over decades, but then a long time to rebuild. But boy, the last few years, Wittenberg-Burnhamwood has been outstanding. They were 10-2 a season ago. They do have Bryson Schmid coming back, who ran for more than 700 yards and 12 touchdowns a year ago. And Wittenberg-Burnhamwood, again, a mixture of returners and losses to graduation. It'll be interesting to see. They do need to replace their quarterback, and that's always a big factor. So I think we're going to learn a lot with that Wittenberg-Burnhamwood Bonduelle game on Friday. Amherst taking on St. Mary Catholic. Amherst has been always solid, but boy, again, you look at the tradition that Amherst has had, they're going to have a rough go of it trying to get into that top 3 in the conference with Stratford, Colby, and Wittenberg-Burnhamwood. But the Amherst Falcons, after a bit of a slow start last season, they were able to battle back, finish 3rd in the CWC-Large a year ago. They fell to Wittenberg-Burnhamwood in a tight game in level 2. So Amherst always going to be a team to keep an eye on as they start on the road against St. Mary Catholic. Auburndale from the CWC-Small against Spencer Columbus from the CWC-Large. But I would think that Auburndale, based on what they've been able to accomplish the last couple of years, could go into that one as a favorite. Auburndale has a pretty good squad back, a team that I think will be very competitive in the CWC-Small. And Auburndale does have Blake Robb. He was a first-team all-conference performer on defense and a second-team all-conference performer as a running back last season for the Auburndale Eagles. So, again, they will be, I think, a team to battle with Iola and Edgar in the CWC-Small, and Spencer Columbus, a team that struggled a bit. They did win 2 of their final 3 games last season, did finish 2-7 on the campaign. That's been a program that's been a bit of a seesaw, either up at a pretty good high rate or down at a pretty low rate. So we'll see what is in store for Spencer Columbus coming up this season. Abbotsford travels to Loyal Greenwood, another battle between a CWC-Large and a CWC-Small team. And the thing that you got to feel for Loyal Greenwood being put in the CWC-Large, and really because they are a co-op, that you add those 2 schools together, and that puts the number of enrollment at the level where they go to the Large, and a team like, say, Edgar ends up in the CWC-Small. So it's, I think, going to be a very, very difficult hill to climb in a very, very tough large for Loyal Greenwood. And Abbotsford, as we talked about earlier with Coach Foster, a program that runs the ball. And they run the ball exceptionally well, but do they have a plan B in order to take maybe another step forward? They do have Christian Fuentes, who has been an outstanding runner for Abbotsford for a couple of years. He had more than 1,000 yards, 13 scores a year ago. But Abbotsford, can they tend to be very good against the teams that they're better physically than, but when they face a team that is as good or better, they've had some difficulty in recent years. Other CWC large schools in play is Colby. They take on Stanley. Boy, that's always a good matchup. And Wyowega Fremont, a team that started 6-0 a year ago before losing their final 4 games. They will start off their campaign at Belleville, not Bellevue, Belleville. CWC-Small, we talked about a number of the games involving CWC-Small schools already, but other games, Thursday night, there's one as Rosholt will take on Manawa. So Rosholt, a team in the CWC-Small that has been struggling for a number of years, they'll try to get off to a winning start against the Wolves of Manawa. Edgar is at Ladysmith, and Edgar, as we said earlier, I think expected to be at the top of this league, just based on the incredible success they've had and also some of the talent they have coming back. But they have a couple of really good non-conference games to get things underway, and I'm sure Jerry Sins is very ready to see his team tested starting on the road at Ladysmith on Friday night. Pacelli is at Catholic Central. Iola Scandinavia and Shiocton. Shiocton, the former team from the CWC-Large, they moved into the Northwoods this year, but they've been a solid program. And Iola Scandinavia, I think, a team that will be battling it with Edgar and Auburndale in the CWC-Small this year. So, and Assumption, it looks like they feel like they could be a team to keep an eye on. Again, with the tougher CWC-Small, that's going to make things more difficult for the Assumption Royals. But they do have a lot coming back. They have a number of their running back and quarterback and some skill players back. So, again, I think Assumption's had their moments in recent years. They've had some very solid football teams. We'll see whether or not they have enough depth against some really good competition at the top of that league. So, that's a look at the CWC, both the large and the small, for this week number 1. Coming up next week, we will take a look at the action. We'll have a better feel for what we have for some of these teams here in central Wisconsin. We'll recap all the action coming up next week with Jason Foster, and we'll preview week 2, and we'll also take a good look at the 8-player game. As 8-player, they have an 8-week regular season, so their regular season does not begin until next week, and we'll talk about the Newman Cardinals and others next week as they get set for their kickoff of the 2024 season. Thanks again to our guests. Again, we had a terrific show here, I think, to begin things. Merrill High School football coach Jason Wadzinski and DC Everest senior offensive lineman Oscar Latendresse. We will have, again, a coach guest next week. Again, we will have a student-athlete guest next week as well. So for my co-host Jason Foster, for our in-studio engineer and producer Ian Welsh, I am Chad Holmes. Again, this will also be available by going to our podcast page. Go to bullfallsradio.com/sports. Go to bullfallsradio.com, click on the show page. Go to civicmedia.us and click on the show page, and you can